Joe.
Blackula.
And stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused.
And I'm your host, Snipe. You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC. This is FocusTalk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about politics, religion, personal development, education, history, music, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things right here in the Inglewood community, throughout the Chicagoland area, as well as the entire United States. I'm your host, Snipe. Joining me today in the studio is Commissioner Richard R. Boykin, who is the Cook County Commissioner for the 1st District. Commissioner Boykin, how are you today, sir?
I am doing absolutely wonderful, and thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you for coming, sir, and sharing some information with us. I'm sure that everyone knows that the Cook County Board of Commissioners is a legislative body made up of 17 commissioners who are elected by district, and president who is elected by the countywide for 4-year terms, and controls a lot of the governing here in Cook County.
Well, absolutely. Cook County does primarily 2 things, public health and public safety. We're responsible for making sure that those who are poor, indigent, have access to health care, and we're responsible for public safety. That means funding the sheriff's office, the jail, and all other instruments related to public safety. We also have 11 separate elected officials, like the assessor, the treasurer, and others that we fund their budgets. We're a $4.8 billion enterprise. The county of Cook is the 2nd largest county in the United States of America with 5.2 million people in it. I think that the county has become uncompetitive as it relates to a number of these taxes that we've passed at the board. I'm very concerned about it. The latest, the sweetened beverage tax, to put a penny per ounce on the individual sweetened beverages. The crazy thing about it is that the rationale for it was that it was a health tax, or a tax to reduce obesity in the county. I don't have a problem with that, but the money is not going there. This money is going to fund county government. We expect that $200 million will come in next fiscal year from this tax. I don't believe we'll get that. I've seen and talked to thousands of people who've actually gone to DuPage County, Indiana, Will, whichever jurisdiction is closest to them, to avoid paying this onerous beverage tax. I think it's another regressive tax put on the people. We shouldn't have done it, and I hope that we repeal it.
So now there are, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here, sir.
Okay.
Now there are no positive aspects to it. For example, helping children, obesity, or being able to curb that other side of people desiring things that may not be the best for them.
The hypocrisy of it is this, is that we suggest that this will deter people from drinking sweetened beverages. I suggest that it won't. But even if it does, then you're not going to realize the revenue that you need in order to fund the government. The $200 million that President Preckwinkle suggests that we would get from this tax. And so when you don't realize that revenue, then you're going to be forced to make cuts. You're going to be forced to lay people off. And you're going to have a catastrophic kind of situation like we had about a month ago when the judge issued a TRO, temporary restraining order, prohibiting us from collecting the beverage tax. She sent out over 400 layoff notices to people. Thankfully, none of those people got laid off. And you know, quite frankly, we could have funded county government without having to actually implement this tax. Again, what I'll say is this: public education, public health education begins at home It begins in schools and that sort of thing. That's where you deter behaviors like this. This money is not going towards that. I mean, very little of this money is going towards public health education. This money, again, is going to fund the government. If 100% of the money was going to fund public health education, I could probably be for it. But I can't be for this. This is a terrible tax. I mean, it is one of the most regressive tax known to mankind. People who can't afford or who don't have transportation can't get to the other counties and can't afford, you know, they're going to continue to drink it, but guess what? They're going to pay more for it. And that's not the right way to go.
So now, Commissioner, let's look at the other side of it. So if there is a gap that's there that the sweetened tax will go to fill, how did we get there in the first place?
Well, I think we get there because, you know, first of all, let me take you back.
Okay.
So President Preckwinkle ran for county board president after Todd Stroger, former president, increased the sales tax, making us the highest sales tax in the nation. She actually ran on a platform of repealing that sales tax, that penny sales tax. She repealed it to just bring it back a couple of years ago. And so she brought it back. So she did the old two-step. I'm going to run and defeat him on the penny tax, but then I'm going to bring it back to fund the government. And so she brought it back, and she said that this would be enough money to fund county government operations. Unfortunately, we're way off the projections for the sales tax, more than $5.5 million down in terms of the projected revenue from the sales tax. And so, quite frankly, county government, the expenditures continue to grow while waste is not being cut, while duplication is not being reformed. If we wanted to, we can reform county government, and we can make county government operate in a more efficient and effective manner without foisting these taxes on people. Look, when you look at the taxes that the city has imposed, property tax increase, tax on water bottles, 5 cents tax on water bottles, a bag tax, you name it, tax upon tax. And then, of course, at the state legislature, they increased personal income taxes 32%, made it retroactive. And there's also a sales tax on gasoline that they tucked in the bill in Springfield. And so all of these taxes pretty soon crush consumers in Cook County, and we don't need that. We've lost more population in Cook County than any other county in the United States of America. And part of that population loss is due to the fact that people can no longer afford to live here. The other part of it is because of all the violence that we see, the gun violence. People are trying to escape the gun violence that we see. Now, we can deal with this gun violence. We can deal with the schools that are crumbling. We can deal with the schools that are failing, if we had the political will to do it.
Now, not long ago, you talked about the tale of two cities and gun violence, what could solve it. But the problem is that you stated that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we really don't want to.
No, I don't think we want to. I think that, look, leadership requires bold action. It requires courageous action. It requires honesty. President Preckwinkle has failed to sit down with Mayor Emanuel and the governor together and talk about ways in which the county, the city, and the state can come together, collectively use our budgets to help reduce the gun violence that we see that's ravaging our streets in Chicago, that's making it virtually unsafe for people to walk down the streets in certain neighborhoods. And many of these neighborhoods, we know them. Austin, West and East Garfield, North Lawndale, Inglewood, Roseland, some of these other communities where people are just fearful of coming outside. Government's #1 obligation is to make sure that we protect the people that we represent. That's why you hear people talking about protecting us against a terrorist attack and putting so much money into protecting American lives and that sort of thing. We've lost so many young people to gun violence. These people are our future. If they're getting cut down like blades of grass, I mean, who's going to support the pensions? Who's going to support us when we become senior citizens? Who's going to take on that mantle of leadership? And so I say to you today, that we in fact can solve this problem. It's not an insurmountable problem. We've made it that because we failed to do anything about it.
So now, Commissioner, are there some underlying issues that we know nothing about, which perpetuate the crime, which perpetuates the violence, and that no one wants to actually deal with? Or is it just an issue that has gotten far out of hand?
Look, I think that where there's a will, there's a way. We know what the issues are. Look, we got to make sure that every kid has an opportunity to live the American dream. We got to make sure that our schools are operating at their optimal peak. We got to make sure that parents and grandparents raising grandkids actually have the support that they need. Look, a lot of these parents are single parents raising young boys and young men, and they're struggling to do it. Government ought to step in and help them. Look, it takes a village to raise a child. And also there's an African proverb that says that the ruins of our nation begin in the homes of its people. And so everything is an outgrowth of the home. Look, police should do a better job in terms of the clearance rate. I read today where the clearance rate is much lower, and that means solving these crimes. Actually, the clearance rate by Chicago Police Department is around 20%. So about 20% of the homicides are being solved. 80% of them are going unsolved, and that means that you got recycled killers, recycled shooters who are emboldened because they're getting away with it. We got to put an end to it. Look, we got to make sure that we enlist the sheriff's support, the sheriff of Cook County, Sheriff Tom Dart. We got to make sure that we enlist the state police support, but we got to make our neighborhoods safe. We know that there's an issue with unemployment. In the black community, we have the highest unemployment in the nation, right here in Cook County. And so we need to do everything that we can to bring businesses back, to attract businesses, to keep businesses open, to bring manufacturing back to the West Side. When I think about the West Side, I mean, we had so many manufacturing facilities. We had Brock's Candy Company that's going to Mexico. We had Sears and Roebuck right there in North Lawndale, 10,000 jobs. We had Western Electric, 40,000 jobs. I mean, you name it, we had it right there on the west side of Chicago. All those companies closed, and they went either to Mexico or other places. And quite frankly, the job base went, the housing stock went down. And so we have to bring those neighborhoods back. We have to revitalize these neighborhoods.
Now, Commissioner, can local citizens, can individuals who are in West Lawndale, who are in Roseland, who are in Inglewood, assist by participating in various task force?
No question about it. I mean, let me tell you, I'm all about citizen democracy. That's how I operate my office. I take the direction from the people. One of the things we did, look, we did a list of town hall meetings in 9 communities, 9 of the most endangered communities in Chicago. And one of the things that came out of that was the Neighborhood Revitalization Act. It basically is a bill that I put forward in Cook County that would provide free housing for police officers, firefighters, teachers, and paramedics as long as they live in the community for and work in the community for at least 5 years. Now, this bill is stalled in the county because President Preckwinkle doesn't support it. But let me tell you this, Mayor Emanuel has adopted the same program. He adopted it a couple of months ago, and he put, I think, about $15 to $20 million in it. It doesn't go as far as our program would, but I think you'll do a number of things. One, I think you'll increase and build the trust between police and the community. You will make sure that that the community is in fact being safe, that they're safe because you have police officers living next door to them. And you'll enhance the employment opportunities for young people in the community, because I would require that developers who develop these homes or rehab the homes actually use the people in the community to do it. And so, I mean, you have a jobs program, you have a program where you're breaking down the the walls between the police and the community, and you're building trust. And so that's one of the things. But people can be a part of our task forces. We have a task force on everything you can think of. Mental health task force, criminal justice reform task force, a task force to deal with education policy, even though the county doesn't do much in the form of education. But education is something that we all ought to be concerned about. Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. And so all of us must be lifelong learners. We all must be concerned about education. But people can call my office or visit me on the website. My office number is 312-603-4566. My website is richardrboykin.com. And like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter.
Okay. Not long ago, Commissioner, you had a session talking about taxes.
Yes.
And whereas thoughts on various taxes as to what citizens can do as it relates to their taxes. Can you give us a little more information?
So, as a county commissioner, what we can do is we can help people appeal their taxes. Look, there was a series of articles in the Chicago Tribune called The Tax Divide. That series of articles chronicled the fact that the assessor, Joe Barrios, oftentimes in poorer communities, the homes are actually overvalued or overassessed, which means that they assess them at a higher amount than what it's really worth. And if you don't appeal that, you wind up paying more than people who live in wealthier communities where their homes really are $1 million homes, but they're valued at a much lower assessed value, which means that they don't pay that much in taxes as much as people in poorer communities. And so we have to make sure that we make the system fair. Now, the assessor did come before the county board, and I asked the question of him, is there regressivity in the system? And he said there is regressivity in the system, which means that, there's inequity when it comes to poor people or working class people actually paying more. And so I said, well, what are we going to do about it? He said, well, that's what we have these tax appeals for. So we held one in the village of Maywood. We had over 200 people show up because, everybody wants to get their assessed values lowered. And, quite frankly, over 70% of the people who appeal wind up getting their taxes lowered. Can you imagine that? Over 70%. So the key is to make sure that you file the appeal and to make sure that you check and see if there are any exemptions that you're not taking in the home, like the senior exemption, the veterans exemption. These things can save you thousands of dollars on your property tax bill. The other thing I'm most proud of is I've been working with Dr. Willie Wilson on property tax relief. He put over $250,000 of his own money in to help struggling property owners pay their property taxes, or else their homes would have been, their taxes would have been sold to tax buyers. And can you imagine a senior citizen living in her home for 30 years, paid off the mortgage, but then have a situation where, because of all these rising taxes and food costs, and her money's staying the same on a fixed income, and she can't afford the property taxes. And so what happens in a situation like that is her taxes will be sold to a tax buyer. And if they collect the taxes for 2 years, she can't redeem. They actually get 18% interest rate, penalties and fees on top of the baseline taxes, whatever she owed. If she can't come to the table with all of that money, then she loses her home to them. And so we're going to introduce a property tax hardship bill on September 13th in the county board that will help people who maybe suffer a hardship get a low interest to no interest loan that'll be backed up by the county.
Okay. Commissioner, I thank you so very much for coming today and sharing the issues that many residents, many individuals are dealing with at this particular time. And we ask that you keep us abreast of what new developments and however we can be of assistance to that particular issue.
I want to thank you for having me. And
Yes,
I
sir.
look to continue. The struggle continues.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you very much. You are in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station, 89.3 WKKC.
You're watching FocusTalk TV
With your host, Dennis Snipe.
You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station, 89.3 is WKKC. This is Focus Talk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about politics, religion, personal development, health, music, religion, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things right here in the Inglewood community, throughout the Chicagoland area, as well as across the continental United States. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. Joining me in the studio today is Coach Kelley. Coach Kelley, how are you today?
Hi, Dennis. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. You know, we have a lot of ground to cover, and there's so much to talk about. You are a Master Force certified life coach.
Yes.
What's that? Explain that to me.
Well, Master Force is the private school that I attended to receive the certification. But as a life coach, I basically teach people to reach emotional freedom, creating power from past pain, basically under the personal development. Anything that's dealing with the mind, body, or soul, my job is to help you create your best self.
Spiritual healer?
Yes, spiritual healing, yes.
Okay. And also a transformation and mental coach.
Yes.
You're a 5-time, well, actually, just very shortly, you'll be a 6-time
Yes, sir.
author. And we'll talk a little bit about that, about your 6th book and then your very first book. And then you're also, you're a speaker, you're a wife, you're a mother. Oh my gosh. How do you do it all?
Balance. I mean, just being a coach helps me because I have to coach myself, right?
Okay.
You have to balance. There are 7 aspects of life, and I try to keep all of them balanced so everybody's happy.
Now, let's start from the very beginning because things started for you, well over 20 years ago, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And how did you get on the path that you are now to be a healer, to be a coach, to be a speaker? How did all that happen? Well, you tell me.
Well, I look at experience today as a very powerful experience. I look at pain as power. And so just going back to talk about the pain real quick, I experienced sexual abuse. I've experienced incest. I was locked in a room for 3 years, drugged and raped. I've attempted suicide twice. I've spent time in mental institutions. I've abused alcohol. I've probably done, just about, or experienced so much pain that the average person wouldn't be here to talk about it. And so moving through that pain, having the ability to move through and to find positive from that pain and to really, really create a life from that childhood experience, I've looked at it like, if I can do this, then I know there's a lot of other people who's suffering. Let me help them. So that's how I became an author. I actually did my first speaking presentation in 2000, I believe it was 2008. It was a graduating class for life skills and computer skills and stuff like that. And the gentleman that invited me, he knew my past. He knew my past of incest and rape. And he said, Kelley, you should come down and just speak to the people. We're looking for a speaker. Just come down and tell your story. And that one moment, I didn't realize just how much of an impact I made to such a small crowd. And at that moment, I said, wow, this is something that needs to be talked about on the regular, because I was coming out about being sexually abused and the incest and the low self-esteem and having slept with over 100 men and having slept with 50 women. I was literally being so transparent, I didn't realize what I was doing at that time. So my purpose just kind of aligned with it. So here I am. How can I not give my light if I've healed myself? How can I not give this energy, this wealth of knowledge to the universe if I know how to move through it, right? So that's how I became an author. I went from speaker and then directly to an author, and I said, okay, so now I have these books, they're reading the books, but I need to help them more. I need to get closer to my readers. So then I went to school to become a coach. So now I'm face to face with the people who I was trying to reach during that first presentation, right? Trying to reach them, figuring out how am I going to do this. And now I have the opportunity to coach clients out of the state, coach clients face to face and help them through sexual abuse and incest and rape and help them create their best self. And not only that, be able to create power from pain. We've gotten so stuck in pain that we can't see the blessing in it. We can't see the lesson in it. Pain is not for our demise. We've been learning in pain since we were babies. Do you remember getting tapped on your hand?
Oh, yeah.
That was pain. Did you do whatever it was again that made you get tapped on the hand? You didn't do it anymore, right?
That's true.
Because pain is education. Pain is power. It's unfortunate that we learn through that because we don't listen, right? We don't listen because that's the egotistical part of us. So what happens is you're moving through life and we're experiencing these painful experiences, but we get stuck in the negative aspect of it. So I've been able to literally go back in time and pull all the positive energy from all of my pain and create what you see right here.
Okay.
Transforming lives worldwide.
Now, interestingly enough, Coach Kelley, you say that you learned that you had been molested. And so what I gathered from that is that you were unaware of what was going on at the time. Do you think that a lot of people may be going through situations in their life and not even aware of what's happening, what's going on with them, or who may be the abuser at the time?
Absolutely. I was actually blamed for being sexually abused. So it was alleged. The gentleman that abused myself, he was allegedly another sister's boyfriend, but he was well over 20 and she was a child too. She was 14. But that was what his purpose was in her life. Or so they say. He was her boyfriend. So I was blamed. So I was accused of having sex with my sister's boyfriend. So in my mind, I was having sex with my sister's boyfriend. So by the time I was 21, my auntie came to visit me and I was crying and I was really, really sad. At that point, I was very depressed. And she asked, what's wrong? What's going on? And I told her, I said, well, everybody's blaming me, for what happened and I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not really hearing what I'm saying, but she goes, honey, you didn't sleep with your sister's boyfriend. He molested you. I had never even heard that word. So yes, I absolutely do believe that there are children out here right now being molested and being blamed. And if you're blamed for it, then you really don't know what's happening. So I walked around feeling very shameful. I walked around feeling like a prostitute, a whore, the lowest scum on the earth, right? I felt like I was worthless because I had did this thing to my sister, right? I had did this horrible thing when in reality, the thing was not done to me. It was done for me. I wouldn't have these books, right?
If it had not been for this experience.
That's right.
Talk to me about forgiveness. It seems as if though that a lot of us are struggling, and even in my own research, I've come to understand that a lot of the sickness that we have, it's because of our unforgiveness.
Yes.
And we're holding things and we're developing different type of diseases and different types of issues in our lives because we refuse to forgive. Absolutely. And then the other side is that, well, I'm not forgiving, I'm not letting it go because they hurt me. And they did this to me. However, I've come to understand that forgiveness is for you.
Yes, forgiveness is for you.
It's not really for the other person.
Absolutely
Explain
not.
that a little bit to me.
So what happens is unforgiveness is basically harboring the unhealthy energy, like the anger, the resentment, the bitterness. You're basically holding on to this negative energy because you're in victim mode. You're in victim mindset. Whenever a person says, you did something to me, I'm not letting it go, you're in victim mind, victim mentality. So a victim mentality is never going to forgive because they don't see that there was something done for them. They only see it as being done to them. So when you're walking around holding on to anger, shame, and blame, and bitterness, and all this unhealthy energy, you're wreaking havoc on yourself. I mean, there's a saying, not forgiving somebody is like giving somebody poison, you ingest it, and then they die.
Hoping that, yeah.
No, I mean, you're killing yourself.
That's true.
You're killing yourself. So it's almost like, I can't let it go. Because then if I let it go, that means it was okay. It doesn't mean that it was okay that it happened, but letting go means you're letting go of the pain and the anger, the unhealthy energy that you're harboring towards this person so that you can free yourself.
Coach Kelley, how do you get to that point? That's the most significant point of the argument. How do you get to that point?
Okay, in my book, I actually talk about, in my book, Perfectly Planned and Overcoming Toxic Relationships, I offer 5 steps to forgiveness. So then there's also a process called recapitulation, but I talk about the steps. So one, you have to cry. You have to release the pain. You can't walk around holding on to it. You have to literally cry. Have your 5 minutes of self-pity or whatever it is you need to hide, but release that pain.
Does that mean that I'm weak because I'm crying?
Absolutely not. Let me say this. When you were born, what did you do? What was the first thing you did? You cried.
But I didn't know any better.
It's a sign of life. It's always been a sign of life. It's going to always be a sign of life. If you didn't cry, you were dead. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So crying is a sign of life. It means you feel. Right? Emotions are a part of who we are, right? That means I felt, it hurt, I'm gonna release it and move on. That's one of the first parts. And then the second part is to have compassion. You know, compassion is this huge word people throw around and many really don't understand. Compassion is really to want healing for the other person. You know, it's not just about you. You want them to heal so that they don't wreak havoc on other people. You want their suffering to be released, right? So the worst type of person, even someone that goes out and rapes somebody, that person is suffering because only hurt people hurt people. So you got to have compassion, right? The third step, find something positive. Right? Find something positive in that pain. There is absolutely always something positive and negative if you choose to find it, right? For an example, if I were to look back on my experiences, I can make a comparison. I could either have been locked in that room and drugged and raped for 3 years, or I can go back to being in the household where there were complete addicts, house full of strange men, right? What would I choose? I would go back in that house because I was safe. See that positive? Mm-hmm. I was safe in comparison to what was happening in this house that I could have been living in, right? Find something positive. And what's more, I'm a 5-time author. Look at the positivity that I found in such painful experiences.
Because of all those experiences.
Absolutely. And then recapitulation, real quick, recapitulation is a process where you actually go back into that space. But you go there with a purpose. You go there with an intent. And in fact, you create an intent. So if I'm going to go back into my past, why am I going there? What am I going to get, right? What am I bringing back with me? So when I wrote this first book, Perfectly Planned, I went back with the intent to not just heal myself, but to create a book that was gonna heal the world. But I had to know that I'm going back. It might hurt. I might have some triggers. I might cry, but I want all of my energy back. I want all of the time spent there. I want all of the emotional energy that I left there, the pain, the anger. Give me back my energy so that I could create something phenomenal with it. And I did that. And that's what recapitulation is, going back, getting your energy back and bringing it with you to use it for a greater purpose. Not going back to just be miserable. Go back, get it, create something for the universe.
Going back now, does that mean, Coach Kelley, reliving the experience?
Not necessarily reliving, because you will, in a sense, if you're not in a space where you're strong enough to actually go back there and just look at it. Reliving is actually feeling every moment. You don't have to relive it. You can go back and just look at the instances, right? What happened when I was being sexually molested? What did I go back and grab? What I went back and grabbed was I learned how to have sex. Right? Sexuality is an aspect of life. I had to embrace it, right? Mm-hmm. I was never taught about sex in my family. Sex wasn't talked about, alcohol. So if he didn't teach me to embrace it, somebody would have. It just happened to be a grown man who in society is considered a child molester, right? Who has no business touching a child. I went back and got that. I embraced my sexuality, right? And even with the women, when I was introduced to girls, because my sister, God rest her soul, she's deceased, she introduced me to incest. What did I get from that? I truly embraced the woman's body, right? You gotta grab the positive. You can't go back and just, oh, I'm gonna go back and I gotta relive this and I hate this person and they didn't teach me this. You can't do that. You have to go back with a positive mind frame.
So now that information that you gathered through all of those experiences, now did that set the stage for Perfectly Planned?
Absolutely.
Okay, now give me the insight behind that.
So now Perfectly Planned and going back to that, it was really going back to heal myself. I realized at about 26, 27, I was still searching. I was still desperately seeking love. I was still having sex with a lot of men, and I was tired. I was tired of feeling worthless. I was tired of giving my body up. I was tired of disrespecting myself, right? And I wanted to do something different. I was tired of feeling like I wanted to kill myself. I wanted a different Kelley. There had to be something. You know, I'm here for a purpose, and I wanted to know what that was. So when I went back, I cried twice. And one time I cried was because my mom is deceased. So she didn't get a chance to see this book, right? And then I talk about her in the book because in the book, she left me at 14. So that moment right there of her walking away when I was 14 and then her not being here for real, that was a tearjerker for me because I miss my mom, right? And then the second time I cried was when I actually made the connection. I said, oh, so this is why I like girls. Because I was introduced to sex with girls at 8 years old. So I cry because these are revelations for me. These are aha moments. It's like, wow, I'm getting it. I'm getting the information I need to complete my book. So I wrote that book in 4 months. I went back, I got the information, and I told every detail I could possibly tell. And this is actually the 3rd edition. I've redone it a couple times, removed some stuff. But I went back and I got the information that I needed, and I wanted to be as transparent and candid as possible. I wanted to talk about, how yes, the sex felt good. Even though I was being molested, my body appreciated it. I wanted to say that so that people who are being molested don't feel bad or shame for your body experiencing some pleasure. That's what the body does. It loves pleasure, but doesn't mean your mind likes it. Right? I wanted to be as open as possible so when people have experienced this, they get it. They can start healing because writing this book released me. I was immediately free of all that pain.
Now, 2 years later, you wrote that book, Perfectly Planned. You were 38.
Yes.
And 2 years later, you wrote Overcoming Toxic Relationships.
Yes.
So now, what was the connective tissue between the two that allowed you to realize that these were toxic relationships?
Yes.
And then how were you able to heal, to grow, to overcome from the 1 to the 2?
Exactly. So overcoming toxic relationships and the connection with Perfectly Planned is basically, I grew up in very toxic relationships. A relationship with a pedophile is a relationship. Unfortunately, it is. The relationship with my parents, they were very toxic. My father was very abusive, and so was my mom, right? And I don't mean to label them, but that was their experience. But so this is toxic, this is dysfunction, right? So I just repeated the same types of relationships, right? So one of the relationships I had with my brother, he was about 15 years old. My father pulled a trigger at him. He shot at him, right? And that traumatized him. So he started drinking heavily. He became very, very abusive.
That traumatized your father or your brother?
My brother.
Your brother.
Traumatized my brother. So he started drinking heavily, and he was really abusive. Like, he would beat everybody in the family. And I grew up with this hate for him. I was so afraid of my brother. But guess what I did? I dated him. Year after year after year. I kept picking men just like him. You see, my father, although he was abusive, he didn't abuse me much. I probably got cussed out. I probably got a couple of whoopings. If you compare it to my older siblings, my father took me on dates. My father told me he loved me. He showed me love. He bought me things. He was my father, right? I didn't look for him. I sought out my brother. I needed to heal from the pain that he subjected upon me from watching him beat my siblings and my father. And
so you needed to heal from the experience or the relationship that you had with your brothers. So you sought out individuals like your brothers so that that hopefully the relationship that you had with your brother that you would find in someone else that would be nurturing and healing.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I didn't get it. And that's metaphysically speaking, right? This is because we attract that which we are, right? A lot of people say opposites attract. In reality, it's like attract like. At the soul level, what's in my soul is going to be in the person's soul that I attract. So if I'm angry at my brother, right?
So water seeks its own level.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely, right? So if I'm angry and I'm harboring the same pain and anger we talked about earlier, if I'm harboring this, then that's in my soul. I'm going to attract that. So I dated men, alcoholics, very abusive. Until I was able to take a look at my own pain, I was going to keep attracting these same people. And that's what overcoming toxic relationships is about. It's really about overcoming your toxic self, first of all, because your relationships are a direct relation to who you are relating with yourself. So I obviously didn't relate well with myself, and that's why I kept attracting toxic people.
Coach Kelley, give me your website.
www.kelleyporter.com, and it's Kelley with an EY.
Okay. We're going to pause for the cause. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with more Coach Kelley. You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station, 89.3 WKKC.
You're watching FocusTalk TV
with your host, Dennis Snipe.
I'm finna be in HD.
Yes, sir.
You been doing this for a minute. I'm in HD, baby.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir.
Bring this down just a little bit.
Yeah, because Slugo he definitely gonna give me the volume.
Oh, yeah. We gonna get animated.
All right, we got speed?
We got speed.
All right, 5, 4. You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station, 89.3 is WKKC. This is Focus Talk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about politics, religion, personal development, music, history, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things in the Inglewood community, right here in the Chicagoland area, as well as across the entire United States. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. Joining me in the studio today is the king of Ghetto House, better known as DJ Slugo. DJ Slugo, how are you, sir?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I am well.
Yes, sir.
I am well. Now, first of all, we've got a lot to talk about.
I'm ready.
But why do they call you the king of Ghetto House?
Because I'm the king. Like,
You're the king? What is...
They call it juke now.
Okay.
But for the younger kids who don't know what it is, but I'm one of the original guys who came up with the sound. So even with my constituents that helped me, come up with the sound, Farley actually was the reason Farley was like, you dope, like from one king to another king. And he was like, you got to claim it. You just got to start saying it. And then if anybody contests it, then you just knock their head off. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, I'm the king of Ghetto House then. And it just stuck and nobody's contested it. So I'm the king.
So now that particular genre of music is what the young people are calling juke now.
Juke music now, yeah. And footwork music. It went from Ghetto House to footwork. Ghetto House to juke, and then from juke to footwork.
Okay, so since there is a line of demarcation between house and then Ghetto House, now when do you cross over? When does house become Ghetto House?
When it has words that you can't say on radio. You know what I mean? That type of Ghetto House is that. Like when you come to radio station, there's certain records, 75% of my catalog can't be played on radio. So that tells you the difference. Old school house, it was happy. And when we were hearing it, we weren't in a happy space and we weren't living in happy times. So the music didn't fit the parties that we were doing. So we came up with our own style.
So bring me this. Who is DJ Slugo?
A kid from the Robert Taylor homes, raised by my mom, father, son, friend, DJ, producer, international DJ now. So that's me, all in a nutshell.
So as far as the genre of music that we were talking about music in Chicago, and for all intents and purposes, you can't mention it without mentioning your name. Oh yeah,
I'm definitely embedded in the Chicago history. A lot of my friends, even people I grew up with, be like, "You're an icon, bro. Like you're a legend." And I'm humble with it. I don't really, I don't care about none of that. If it doesn't equal $sign for me, I don't need the titles. You know what I mean? But I take them. But at the end of the day, it's like if that title's not gonna bring me an extra check, man, I don't care nothing about that. Like, call me what you want to call me. Just don't call me late for dinner. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, man, it's like, I was just telling my aunt, I helped my aunt put out her book. Actually, did I give you a book, JB?
No, sir.
I had it with me. What'd I do with the book?
You got it with you.
Yeah, I got it with me. Maybe it's outside. But I helped my aunt put her book out. And this is the woman who helped my mom raise me. So for me to be able to help her put a book together was like something historical for me. And to be able to DJ her book signing, I called everybody, JB, everybody. I need everybody to buy a book. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm a kid from the projects, man. Like, I grew up in Robert Taylor homes, a 4950, 905. And to come from that to be a DJ, traveling the world, playing music for thousands of people and getting paid to do it. Like, you can't make that story up, man. Like, it's like, if, you know, JB's been around me for a while. If you knew my life from where I came and all the struggles I went through to where I'm at now, like, you will wake up every morning super thankful. Like, you can't tell me I don't care what type of God you want to call it, there's something more powerful than me in this world. And I know that for a fact. Like, I've been through it all.
You brought up your auntie's book.
Yes.
And actually, that was one of my questions. What's the name of her book?
It's called I Wish You Would. And her name is Spring Etta Edwards. And the book is called I Wish You Would. And she's literally writing about her. She grew up in the projects. Mm-hmm. And the stories in there, like, I got some family members who it ruffled a lot of feathers, because she just, instead of her going to therapy, she put it all in the book. Everything.
So this is her autobiography.
Like, yes, and she let it all out. Like, I was shocked at some of the things she's saying in the book, so that people might need to read that, especially some of the family members.
What role did you have in creating the book?
She had wrote 2 books. Like, she had enough writings. She had been writing over the years to write 2 books. And my grandbaby had accidentally called her phone. It was ironic. It was crazy. Accidentally called her phone. And I was like, who are you talking to? And it was my aunt. And I got on the phone and we ended up start talking about some of her writings. And I was like, why you ain't never wrote a book? And she was like, I don't know the first thing about that. And luckily it was another lady, what is her name? I can't think of her first name. Vanessa. I can't think of Vanessa. Vanessa Collins. And she had been trying to get me to write a book for 3 year. She'd been trying to get me to write a book. She'd been trying to persuade me to write a book for 3 years. And I was like, okay, let me push my auntie off on her, and that'll get her off me for a while. So I introduced her to my auntie, and then about 2-3 weeks later, they was like, we got something together already. She's working on it. We putting it together, and about a month later, they had a book. And they was like, you brought this together, and I was like, wow, my auntie got a book. And she cries every time I get on the phone with, like, oh, baby, you made this possible. I'm like, yeah, but you made me possible, because my auntie is the reason I stayed out of trouble a lot. Like, me and my brothers were kind of bad kids, So
you said kind of bad.
Yeah,
kids.
just kind of, But we had a mom, a zero tolerance mom, who whatever was in the house to use to teach you a lesson, she would hit you with it. So, the only thing I feared in life coming up was my mom. Teaching, be like, I'm gonna call your mom, please. Don't call my mama. You can do anything you wanted to do to me, but please don't call my mama. Because I already knew when I got home, it was going to be real crazy. Like, and I think my mom, every time I see my mom, I think I appreciate them beatings. I appreciate them beatings. I appreciate, cursing us out, all that, because I know you wanted better for us. And she was a single mom raising 5 kids. So I tell people all the time, you want to know who my hero is? I watch my mama struggle. That's my hero. I watch my mama struggle in the projects with 5 kids, and all of us okay, all of us doing well. Who else would be your hero? That's my hero. I don't look up to nobody else. I look up to my mama. You know what I'm saying? So, and my aunt.
DJ Slugo, when were you first introduced to music?
As a kid, my grandma's a connoisseur of music, and she still dances. My grandmother's 91 or 92, and still can outdance everybody in the family.
Really?
Yeah, my grandma. So I scratched up a few of her albums. I scratched up my mom's albums. Like, I was into music, and my uncles are singers. Like, they was, coming up with the Shy Lights and all those people. My uncles, them from that era, and I got one uncle, and he was in one of those groups. And, I got a chance, as a young age to watch. Actually, my cousin who taught me how to DJ is his son. So our family is very, musically oriented. So it was, my whole life sitting and listening. Like, I know all of the old school music from sitting around listening to my mama and my uncles and my aunties play these records. Back as a kid, you was like, oh my God, like, they gonna play James Brown one more time, and James Brown, Al Green, people like that, Smokey Robinson. My uncle was Smokey Robinson crazy. I know all the Smokey Robinson records because of him. I used to be around him. taught me, you know, may he rest in peace, but he taught me a lot about life, you know, and the do's and the don'ts, and how to, you know, carry myself being in that type of environment, you know, to stay out of trouble, and how to carry myself in the hood. So, you know, my uncle, but he was a Smokey Robinson fan, man. Like, that's all you heard of him. And I used to be like, why y'all listen to this sad music, man? Like, this music is sad. But I'm very musically inclined when it comes to music. Like, I got the chance to hear music when instruments were in before drum machines.
So do you think that was a profound shaping of your career and how you see music and what you do with it now?
The crazy part about it is, in high school, I hated music class. Like, my piano teacher used to try to teach me how to play piano, and I used to always say to her, I'm never gonna have any use for playing a piano. And I'm eating those words to this day. Like, now I gotta pay for piano lessons or something she was trying to teach me for free back then. Mm-hmm. But it definitely shaped me, because once I took my roots and said, nah, you into music, and I saw my cousin them DJing, I'm like, nah, I want to learn that. And once they taught me, it was like, no, I know music. Like, I know beat counting and things like that, hearing the different measures, 8 bars, 16 bars. I learned how to count music young, you know, patting my feet and watching my uncles and them dance and stuff like that, or them in the band practicing. And I'm saying, how is they keeping a rhythm like that? You know, but then I end up learning from my uncle that the drummers was the key to the entire band. And I'm like, why? And he was like, he keeps the rhythm. Watch him. And I used to be like, oh. Then church, you know, church was big too. I used to go to church, and I was forced to go to church with my grandma, but I always watched the choir and the bands at the church. I never paid attention to the word or what was going on. I was always focused on the choir and the band, like watching the drummer, like, oh, okay, I get it now. You know, and watching the bass players, I'd be in a jam, and like, it was a jam. Church was a jam session for me. So it was like, I like church. They jamming up in here. You know what I mean? So yeah, music is all my life since I was a kid.
Tell me about your first experience going to a radio station.
Oh man, how old was I? Maybe 15, 14, something like that. I might have been about 14, maybe younger. And Pink House was a icon in the projects. Like, we looked up to may he rest in peace, man. That dude and his heart, man, like, oh man, he's like a super nice dude. And I just walked up on him one day and was like, hey man, I want to go to the radio. You should take me to the radio station. He just looked like, all right, I got you. And you know, of course, they used to spin us because we were shorties. And one day he was coming out the building and was like, hey, you still want to go to the radio station? I'm like, yeah. And he took me and brought me up to KKC. And I was like, you know, you a kid, you in amazement. Like, you see the mics and you looking at the glass windows, like, and you was like, wait a minute. So it also threw me off a little bit, because I was like, all of the stuff we hearing on radio, like, you watching them pre-record stuff and saying, oh, that's how they don't make no mistakes. You know, like, oh, they editing this stuff. Oh, okay. But it was an experience for me that I had never forgot. Like, man, at first I thought I wanted to do radio. And then I saw all of the stuff that goes on the radio. I was like, no, I'm a little bit too lazy for that, so I'm not going to do that, you know. But went on to school and did school and stuff like that. And after school, you know, I got the chance to play my junior or sophomore year. The DJ didn't show up, and I got a chance to, like, I'll do it. And everybody didn't know I had equipment in the house the whole time. They was like, you can DJ? Mm-hmm. I've been practicing. My cousin taught me I can DJ, and they let me DJ and messed up and paid me. And that was it.
That was
like,
it.
Oh yeah, you wait a minute, I get some money for this? I'd have did it for free. I was that excited about DJing back in the days that I would have DJ'd all of the parties for free. That's how bad I wanted to be my cousin them, you know, because they was super popular. Like, they had when they threw parties down on State Street and things like that, everything was shut down. The police couldn't even control the parties. It was just like, let them party as long as they don't fight. Just let them party. And we should be out there till, like, my mama wouldn't let me go past 8 o'clock. My mama be on the porch screaming our name. Me and my brother, Thompson, go ahead. At 8 o'clock, we on the porch. Everybody else downstairs, and we just on the porch watching everybody dance and older people stepping and stuff like that. And, you know, the projects was an experience, man. Like, music, and that one time him taking me to the radio station was like, man, I don't know if I think I want to do radio. I want to be into music. that's what sparked me. I was gone from there. It was.
So now, what are you doing now musically, and how has those experiences play into what you do now?
Well, I'm definitely on radio, and I ain't gonna say the radio station because I'm on another radio station, but I'm on radio now. I do mixes. I do mixes for the radio station, but I'm also still DJing, and production is my biggest thing. So being able to actually make a record and watch people dance to your record, or somebody walk up to you and be like, oh, that last record you did, and the drums, and and then these are foreign people saying this to you. It's like, I always tell my homies, like, it's crazy that I'm around y'all, hanging with them, sitting in the house with them, we kicking it, playing games, and they just look at me like Slugo or Thomas. But when I'm in these other countries, it's like I'm a DJ god, you know what I mean? So it's like when you come home, it'd be like, why am I hanging? Y'all don't even treat me like these people, you know what I mean? Y'all don't look up to me like these people look up. But I mean, it humbles me to be around my brothers and stuff like that. It'd be like, bro, it makes me normal being around them. Other than that, my head would be enormously big. But the experiences, traveling and everything, going out the country and stuff like that, DJing, man. Shouts to Terry Hunter. Like, he keeps me humble. Like, when I'm getting ready to travel, I always call him like, hey, I'm finna go to Italy. What should I do? And he would give me advice. I called him when I went to Belgium. Now I'm on my way to Dublin, Ireland. And ironically, my grandmother calls me and says, your great-grandfather's from there. Your history is from Ireland. I'm gonna send you some information. You can do some research while you over there. And I'm like, whoa, okay, cool. So
now I'm so very curious. How does it feel to be going to these different countries, these different states, viewing different people who look nothing like you? Feel humbling.
That's the word. It's humbling. Like I was telling you earlier when I was in here, and I don't mind telling you, like, I cried in Italy, man. Like, broke down in the shower. Like, you gotta understand, like, you a kid from the projects and you looking like, wow. I'm looking at my hotel window saying, I am literally over 6,000 miles away from the United States, finna play for a crowd of 3,000 people. Like, you can't make this stuff up. Like, I went from the porch, DJing on the porch of Robert Taylor Homes, and I'm finna DJ in front of a crowd of 3,000 people. You can't make that story. I never would have been able to say, I'm gonna be this big DJ traveling the world. Ever. I didn't DJ, that was not my idea in high school or grammar school. Like, and the crazy part about it is, one of the girls, we got this 30-year anniversary coming up for our school, and one of the girls reminded me, like, you in the yearbook as the most likely to succeed. And I was like, am I? Because I didn't remember that, because I was a clown in school. Like, I was the joke. We used to joke all the time, and because school was so easy for us. Like, we were all principal scholars. I graduated top 10 in my class, but I was a clown. Like, I didn't like school because it was like, I went to do Saba, bro. And I lived in the projects. The school was right across the street from my house. So it was like, school was boring to me, man. It was like, I don't like math. I'm never gonna use this. That's how I thought. English, why? I have no plans on writing anything. It was just like, and it was really where I was from. Like, being around those particular people. And I tell people all the time now, change your environment, because if I'd have went from off the environment of where I came from, I'll be nothing right now. Because
change your environment.
Change your environment in your circle. Because if you're hanging around, when people say, now, I don't believe in the thing when they say, if you hang around millionaires, you'll be a millionaire. No, that's not true. If you hang around millionaires and you work like the millionaires work, then you'll be a millionaire. But it's easy to be a bum. If you hang around bums and all they do is drink, smoke, kick it, and hang out, and you do the same thing, you're gonna be a bum. Plain and simple. But millionaires, they work.
You're watching FocusTalk TV
with your host, Dennis Snipe.
If you can't be a highway, then be a trail. If you can't be the sun, then be a star. Because it isn't by size that you win or fail, but be the best at whatever you are. If you can't be a highway, then be a trail. If you can't be the sun, then be a star. Because it isn't by size that you win or fail, but be the best at whatever you are. And stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused. stay focused.
Joe.
Black Killer.